Lorenzo, welcome to the Triton College podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Uh, Lorenzo is an alum and former employee of Triton College and current member of the alumni board. And he's come on to answer some questions that we have for him. And because it's also Black History Month, we'll kind of go into that a little bit too towards the end. So let's begin. So why don't you describe your experience here at Triton College from when you began a student and when you transitioned to an employee?
Awesome. Well, thank you first for having me, Dimitri. It's always good to see you, sir. I can definitely say my time as a student at Triton College was a time in which, as I go into this reminiscent thought process, and I'm thinking back on walking through the halls of Triton College, it was an exciting time, a great time, being involved. So as an involved student leader, I saw lots of opportunities. I was a kid that grew up in Merrill's Park, Maywood, and of course Hillside. And coming into this campus, it was diverse, so many different type of people, and so many great relationships. As a student and being on clubs and organizations with these people, taking classes with so many different people, and engaging in all kinds of friendships. It was a great time. And then transitioning as a staff member, I had a similar experience. We had a diverse department that I had the privilege of working with in the student life office, working in student affairs. And I did special initiatives. So I had the opportunity to really work with our veterans and things like that, as well as anything they could throw at us, basically. So great time. It was just overall, that's the way that I can summarize it is just being engaged in a very diverse community.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you were a student here and you then became an employee. So how would you say that your perspective of the student experience shifted from there? So you being a student to being an employee, how did you view the student experience and how did it change?
So from being a student to being a staff, how did it view?
Yeah. So basically when you're a student, right, you kind of see the small picture, right? You see your own stuff. And then when you become an employee, you kind of see the bigger things and how it affects students overall. So how did that happen?
That's another good question. Thanks, Dimitri. Taking what you see as a student, you're really focused on, your schooling, classes, and then I was an involved student, so the extracurriculars.
What were you involved in for extracurriculars?
Well, let me tell you, I was a little bit too involved. I had, of course, I was on TCSA, which is our student association. I was in Model Illinois Government, which also served in many roles in that great organization around political science. I was part of the Triton Bible Club. We did things with program board. I was part of even the transition. It was a programming board and the student senate, and we had an opportunity to work with them. And then there was, I'm trying to think back, I was a student ambassador. It was so many different other activities and roles. Those were just some of them. And when I think on those, that was your student experience. I was in those roles. And your classwork and schooling, you're focused on that. But when you became a staff member, you started to think about what their experience meant in their lifetime as far as their career.
Okay.
So what could you do as a student leader to be prepared for the life that you'll lead as a professional, a young professional? And what I come to learn is many of the things that I had a preview in as a student really became what you would do on a regular basis, being part of boards. Now I'm part of boards all the time. A lot of that prepared me for what I would later engage in as a professional. I remember my first time assuming the role as a program assistant in student life, and I really dedicated myself to see to it that students really understood what their experience was really preparing them for. So we would just really push what does it mean to kind of really prepare and know your organization's function on the campus. What does it mean to really serve people through those different roles? So it was, you started to, you learned things about engagement, like how to engage with your community, to listen to them, to hear, and then to invite. And you became like a social media marketer pro as a student leader because you wanted to build your clubs and organizations. So it was that. And as a staff member, you wanted them to see that what they're doing now isn't just the end of the road.
Right.
Like, it's what it's preparing you for is to be successful in a number of fields as a young professional.
I think that's a cool way to put it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as you're a student here, or a student anywhere, again, like we said, like that small picture stuff where you go in, you involve yourself in these clubs because you want to. You want to have the camaraderie of the people with the similar interests, or you want to be involved in making the campus better. But then when you transition to an employee, then it's, how do I get that student to understand that what they're doing is important, not just fun?
Yeah.
And how can I teach them to use that to move on and be successful? Yeah.
Yeah. It became like a mantle of leadership that you start to see it as.
I like that phrase.
Yeah, like you started to see it, and it's not putting too much on them, but to your point, it's like letting them know that this is fun, but it's also important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you left Triton,
Yes.
what was your educational and professional journey?
So for me, around that time, I had graduated from Triton College, and then assumed and did some studies at National Louis University, in which it was applied behavioral sciences, in which I had became more familiar with. And then I assumed my professional work and started working in the city of Chicago at UIC College Prep.
I remember that.
Yeah, and so I had the opportunity to work with their admin team, and work with some incredible people with the Noble Charter School Network. And I had the opportunity to really speak to all of the local grade schools around Chicago to get them acclimated with getting ready for high school. So that was that first, what you would consider your real job. It was a full-time role, working in a school that was fast-paced, right, near that area downtown. It was in the hospital district.
Yeah.
Right downtown, and it was incredible. Getting up in the morning, heading to the city, but then working with so many incredible kids in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, and then at that school they were like advanced kids, right?
So yeah, well, the charter school was by lottery. So they were, but the kids were incredibly talented and smart.
I remember when you would tell me about it.
Yeah. It was incredible. I did 3 or 4 years with that team, and it was really like they really zoned in on giving particularly Black and brown kids an opportunity at higher education. They had 100% high school graduation rate, and they were getting their kids.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was the noble way, right? But it was great to be in that environment. But I did remember being in that environment closer towards the time that I would depart. It was great that we were doing this in Chicago, but what about my people in Proviso? So I decided that I wanted to take my experience and come back home, and that's what I would do next. I would, of course, work start in Proviso. I was serving seniors, driving seniors to and from hospital appointments, and then I would later assume the role in youth services, where I'm the director now. So that I just skipped past like 100 different steps, but that was somewhat of my career journey there.
Okay, so after you left here, how do you think that Triton prepared you for that, and what challenges did you have to overcome? So like you had these challenges, going on. You said it was 100 steps.
Yeah.
What did you have to do, or what issues did you have to build up for that?
Well, yeah, definitely. Working in various fields and just, what I would call adulting is difficult, very difficult. I would say that my time at Triton prepared me to be a person that saw, um, to view issues or problems as opportunities to make a difference. It was to look at your community and see that you can just change the narrative. It doesn't have to be a certain way. You have an education. You can make a difference in your community. The whole idea about introducing people to an education was something that was like really honed in. The Commit to Complete initiative, when we were students at Triton, it was like this big thing about telling people to consider what does it mean to obtain a degree. That's a game changer in any community.
And I think that's, as much as we stress it, it's hard for the students to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
Especially first generation students.
Yeah.
Who first generation educate, college
Definitely.
students, because there's the light at the end of the tunnel isn't 100% clear.
Right.
And so getting them to understand that and commit, like we said, the commit to complete, but the commit is also on our end.
Definitely.
As educators.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't, the investment that we make in them has a 100-fold investment to their experience as they're navigating this thing. And so if it's individuals that are listening that are in that profession, your investment in our kids makes the world of a difference, because a lot of people believed in me. I was not the poster child for academics. I was not. Those were people that believed in me, that empowered me through academics. And those individuals are the reason why I work so hard in my public roles, because I do know that makes a difference in a young person making a decision to be something or to explore a different lifestyle that is not a satisfying one, to see starting their own business versus an arraignment in a courtroom. We don't want that to be their story. We want them to experience more in life and not be restricted from opportunities because of certain life decisions.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where the community college comes in.
Definitely.
It creates that safe space where you can come in, and if you struggled in high school or you have no idea what you want to do, it gives you time.
Yes.
You can come here and you're not paying multiple thousands of dollars, into the tens of thousands of dollars a year, to then struggle or not know what you want to do and then switch classes and have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
Having that buffer, I know from my personal experience, really helped. Because I was non-traditional. I came back to college in my 20s.
Yeah.
And, when we first met, and it was nice for me because even then I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
Right.
And being able to get into college, get a footing, build up my grades, and then move on was huge for me.
And I appreciate that, though, because, again, we had an opportunity to reinvent ourselves in a way through our community college experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say definitely the same. It wasn't the conversations with my dad was like how to pay for college.
Right.
And
right.
that wasn't,
right.
It didn't come off as a obtainable thing. But then when you walk through the halls of Triton, you were able to take up classes. And of course, I've loved every political science class. Shout out to Bill Decker in the social sciences. But it gave you a moment to think, I can be something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I got out of my Triton College education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. I think we'll end that question on that.
Yeah.
That's a good way to end
it.
So you've mentioned before, like you went out, you worked, in the city, but you still wanted to come back here. So you keep mentioning the neighborhood. So you went to grade school, high school here, went to college here. You have a connection, right? Do you feel a calling to being in this area and serving this area?
Definitely. I think we have, for our larger community, like the Proviso community, we have the power of a university right in our backyard. It's right neighboring. It serves Proviso. Right here in River Grove, we have a community college that's a game changer for all of the communities within Proviso and everything surrounding it. You can decide to take a class on I don't even want to know how many course offerings. I mean, of course, we know how many course
Yeah.
offerings, but there's so many course offerings that based on interest or whatever the industry need is, you can take a class and then become proficient in a certain skill and get right there, right into the workforce, in a matter of a year or less.
And I think that's that too. Getting to the point of the community college, that's something where if you're not sure what you want to do,
Yeah.
right, but you want to start making good money,
Yeah.
we have trades here that you can get into,
Yeah.
and within a year or two, start making good money.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why for a community the size of us, 150 plus thousand people, with communities with very diverse communities, where attainment, if we are able to increase degree attainment, it's a game changer in a community. It changes everything. Having individuals that are proficient in certain skills, it changes it. Even from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you can start a business and then make a difference in your community. And from a community empowerment standpoint, having the tools to be able to bring about change is paramount. So having the tool available, when we talk about access to opportunity, we have access to opportunity right here in your local community college. I would say, even for me, being just to reflect on that, is taking some coursework. But the main degree attainment for me is my Triton College degree. And I'm able to, I can really say through the my advancement that's one of the top degrees that I have. And so I say it unapologetically that it's what you've done, what I've been able to do with my degree. And more to come, more degree attainment in my future. But I take a lot of pride in what I've been able to do with the Triton College education. And I stack it up with any of the others for me to be just as one of many examples of what people have managed to do with it. Being able to lead community projects on both a state, a county level, and I'm humbled to do it. But it's served me well to be able to research and to connect, and use a lot of the skills that I've gotten in my extracurriculars as well, to be able to advocate for people, to build partnerships with people. Those things came out of the halls of Triton College. And many of us that are alum would just ask, where else could I've had such a full experience in my education? I was a student leader. I was a founding member of our alumni association. Many people go to, their colleges or universities and are participating with their alma mater. But how many can say I was the founding president of my organization? That's a privilege that very few people have, but I can say it because that was my experience at Triton College.
Okay, so some of the themes for this year's Black History Month are representation and identity. So how do you feel that those ideas relate to your own passion of service and servanthood?
Oh, that was good. You did some research, huh? Okay, I see you, sir. So thinking about those two themes, I would say for me primarily understanding who I am as a servant leader is the way that I show up for my community and for my culture. So I show up every day with the intention of showing up well for all of those who came before me. And I do that in my community. I do that in my family. I do that in my circle of friends or the industries that I have access to that I can influence. I understand that for me, where I stand and where I sit, I mean things to other people who look like me and who may have come from where I've come from. So I'm standing on the shoulders of all those who worked tirelessly just to see that I have these sorts of opportunities. So the doors that I walk through, I know I have something not necessarily to prove, but something to represent when I walk into those rooms. That I represent things like integrity, that I represent things like hard work, that I represent things like determination and perseverance. and that identity piece, that I am someone, that I'm not to be taken lightly, but I am to be taken seriously, and that means showing up for myself too. And so when I think about like my mission statement to exemplify leadership, compassion, and servanthood, I do that in my community work. I do that when I'm helping out on causes that members of my community have expressed that are important to them. And I do that by doing it with a level of compassion for those who did not or do not have access to the things that I did or do. And I always think about that. What about my experience? My parents sacrificed for me to have private education. And though a community college education was less expensive than a university education, it still came at a cost. And those sorts of things taught me the value of what other people have done to give us what we have, and that we have the opportunity and obligation to give back when we do assume those roles. So you do it as a member of the Alumni Association. You do that as a member in some sort of public sector job or private sector job. If you're a business in the community, you do that when you give back to those who invested in your business. And then the community that you're a part of, you want to be a part of that community and do something for that community because you're a part of it. Because you want them to support your business so you too can support that community. So it's my hope that answered your question.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenzo, for coming on the inaugural episode of the Triton College Podcast.
Awesome. I'm glad to be one of the first.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully we'll have you on soon.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.